Alrighty, hey there, Ted here from BigGoofyRunner. I just got back in from doing my second snow shoveling of the day. So this morning what have I done? I've done snow shoveling, walk the dogs, 10-mile run, snow shoveling again. Now I'm doing the video. But while I was out walking the dogs, and unfortunately my autofocus is going nuts here. Can I turn it off? Nope. Anyway, while I was walking the dogs in the snow, I had an epiphany that I should maybe, with just a couple weeks left to go until the 2019 Dopey Challenge, I should kind of talk about what a good packing list is. Now, I've done races at the Disney World Marathon races. I haven't done any of the other Run Disney events, but I've been at the Walt Disney World Marathon events and run in them 8 times. This is going into my 9th. And in that time, I've run into some good weather, bad weather, and bloody awful weather. Super hot day on a marathon, one of the races, a huge percentage of do not finishes that year because it was so hot. The 2017 half marathon was canceled for lightning. I was there for that one. And I've been there when it snowed. A link in the video description, I may be up in the corner, to Lee Hoedl's 2010 Walt Disney World Half Marathon All Along the Route video. In there, he's got video, well, across the whole course, but you can see some of the snow falling in the morning there during that race. So yeah, it does get cold in Florida. So with that in mind, over doing this races 8 times, seeing all sorts of different weather, I've got a packing list up on my blog that kind of covers all things, all weather. So it's a pretty big list. I don't pack light, and I'm not a minimalist runner by any means. Probably the exact opposite of that, actually. But in that list, and I'll link down below as well what that full list is, there's a few things that are specifically for cold weather. And in here, I'm going to cut in a little bit of my discussion of this while I was out walking the dogs this morning. Little puppies. Hey, Svenny. How's it going, buddy? Hey, Arrow. Psst, over here. Psst, Arrow. So, weather's a good topic for discussion. As we're out here walking in the snow, I'm reminded of the Disney World Half Marathon in 2010 when it snowed. Yeah, snow in Florida. That was fun. Right on out waiting for the race to start, and it's snowing. Nobody's dressed for the cold. Nobody's ready for it. Even us Northerners that are used to the cold, just we're not ready for it. So that kind of leads into some gear thoughts and gear discussions on what to pack for Dopey Challenge in Disney World in January. Like, everyone thinks Florida's warm, Florida's hot. It is, except for when it's not. And when it's not, the cold is surprising. Up here in the north, like I'm in Winnipeg, Canada, up here, if it's around 0 degrees, it's not so bad. So right around freezing, it's not too bad. It's you go out for a run, it's actually pretty nice. It feels pretty good, especially for a big guy like me. I don't overheat. It works really well. But down in Florida, where you're waiting 2 hours or more for the race to start, standing out in the cold, and it's, right around freezing and high humidity, that cold just sinks into your bones, into your muscles, and it can make for a very unpleasant experience. But on that list, there's emergency foil blankets, the Mylar silver blankets. These guys. They pack up nice and small. I usually bring enough for every single race, one for each race that I'm doing that year, so 2 to 4 or 1 depending on what I'm doing. Those keep the heat in. Now, I'm from Winnipeg. I have run a half marathon in minus 40 degree weather. It was cold, but I was dressed for it. It was good. The thing with that was I walked out of a warm building, ran the race, walked into a warm building. You don't get that option at Disney, at Run Disney. You're outside your hotel room at least 2 hours probably even 3 hours before you're running. That's a long time for the cold to sink in. And in Florida, that humidity's up there. So if you're near freezing and it's cold and you're out there for 3 hours in light running gear, that cold's going to sink into your soul. It'll take you down, and you'll be stiff and you'll be sore and you'll be miserable before you even start to run. The Mylar blanket's great. Of course, those have a tendency to let the wind blow in. They only cover my upper body. They won't cover my whole body, so I'll also take a couple of big garbage bags. I'll cut out a head hole and a couple of armholes, and I'll slip that over top of everything I'm wearing that morning. And that'll cut the wind. It gives me an extra layer of thermal insulation as well to keep my body heat from leaking out, and it's quite useful. It's definitely helpful. At the 2018 races, that it was cold as well. I don't think quite as cold as 2010, but it was cold. And yeah, it was a sea of Mylar everywhere. It was just silver. So that was pretty cool. I'll bring in spare sweaters and sweatpants and things like that. Stuff that I'm willing to abandon. Just some cheaper stuff. Keep extra layers on before the race begins, or even into the races. Once I get warmed up, I can start tossing them. The nice thing about that is you don't throw it out in the middle of the road, but you throw it to the side of the race course, away from everyone, so no one trips on it. But you throw it to the side, and Disney collects all that after the end of the race, washes it all up, and takes it to charity for people in need. So that's awesome. What else do I bring for cold? Running gloves. 2 pairs. 2 pairs so that I can clean the pair after I've worn them. I'll wear a pair and clean them right after. I mean, Disney's great with their aid stations, bananas, all that kind of stuff, and you don't want to be smelling banana on your glove the next day. So I wash them after I use them, and then I always got a spare pair in case that pair I washed is not dry for the next race. What else we got? Running toque, fleece cap or a running cap, thermal cap. A couple of those, same sort of deal. I'll, wear one for one race, rinse it, and then I've got another one dry for the next day in case that first one's not all cleaned up or not dry yet. What are some other general things? And I will link to my full list down below. I also have one for the Goofy Challenge too, which is a little lighter on the sheer volume of stuff because it's 2 less races. But what else do I bring? Baby wipes. I have spent and become way too familiar with the porta potties on the Run Disney races, so I bring baby wipes. Rain poncho. Weather happens, so it's good to have a little rain poncho just in case. I also bring a phone gimbal. This guy. It is Zhiyun, I think, a Smooth Q gimbal. Basically, you put your phone in it, and it tries to keep it stable while you're moving and running around. I'll link to the first races I ever used those on, or the only races I've used them on so far, is the 2018 Dopey Challenge races. Gives a nice, smooth video. Takes out a bunch of the running jiggle, that kind of fun stuff. So it's very good for that. I stick my smartphone in there. I also rigged something to put a little GoPro in it as well, but the GoPro wasn't as good in low light, so I'll be using just the phone from now on in the races, just because the phone is much better in lower light. So that's the next thing, of course, is then bring the smartphone. So the smartphone, it's recording the video, it's got my music playing, I've got a running app going. I mean, I've also got a running watch on that will be recording my race and stuff like that as well, but I generally like to do it on the phone as well. We'll see if I do it. So with the phone recording video, doing a GPS, playing music, all those kind of things, it's going to start chewing through the battery on that phone pretty quick. Especially being Canadian down there with a Canadian phone, the phone's always in roam, so it's always trying to hit the cell towers a little more frequently, trying to find home, essentially. And that burns the battery faster as well. So my battery always burns quicker at Disney than it does at home. So I bring a battery bank on any runs. Now, I've done ultra marathons with a nice rectangular bank that it slips into a pocket really nicely. The battery runs out. For these races, I've got something different. So the gimbal has a port on the side of it that you can plug in a phone, and you can charge your phone. So you can plug in your phone and charge, and as it's working. It's got a nice big battery, it works great. Only problem is the charge port on that only works when the thing's turned on. Now, I'm not always recording every single step of a marathon, especially. It's going through the cool stuff at Disney and stuff like that. That's what I'm recording. So I want to be charging the phone additionally. So I've got this guy. It is a barrel. I can't remember how much this one actually is. It's 4,000 milliamp hours, so it's not huge, but it's, it's more than what the battery of my phone is. So it gives me a bit more oomph. And the nice thing about this is it has a little screw at the back here, and this won't focus unfortunately, but it screws into a normal tripod type mount. And the gimbal has a tripod mount at the bottom. So this screws in there, and it's all together as one big stick. It actually gives me a little extra reach, maybe some extra cool video, that kind of stuff. So that works pretty well. I'll just keep the phone plugged into that through the whole race, so that way the phone will be charged. That works well. What else do I take? Headphones. Got a set of Bluetooth headphones. It probably won't last through the whole marathon, unfortunately. The batteries on it aren't as good as I would like. So I'll also carry a small pair of wired headphones for the marathon. What else? Hydration pack. I've talked in other videos about how much liquid I actually need. So I carry what is actually a pretty big backpack with 2 liter 2 liters of liquid in it. But there's lots of space in there to store stuff. Like I said, I'm not a minimalist runner, so there's a lot of space for me to put stuff during the race. So that's good. That works for me. What else do I bring? Nip strips. Chafing nipples suck. So, yeah, nip strips. What also works, as I've used before, is just the little round bandages you get when you get injections and things like that sometimes. Gotten those, and those have worked decently. But they don't always stick as nicely when you're sweating. So these nip strips seems to be working pretty well for that. A race bib belt. So this guy's got 2 little clips on it that go into the top holes of a race bib. Saves time and frustration trying to pin your bib to your shirt. It just, yeah. I don't want any frustration when I'm there. What else? A smaller running belt. I'm only going to use the hydration pack on the full marathon. So other smaller belt for the other races. What else? Okay, the real special one, the big one, and I'll link to, I've got an article on my blog about this one. Pieces of magic. Now, years back, I was going to do, I think this was when I traveled, I'd go do the marathon without any family. It was probably the first time I did that. I just went myself down there or something like that. I guess it was just my wife. The kids didn't come. So I wanted to take something along on the races with me to kind of remind me of my kids, and when we got to, if I got to a spot where I was in trouble a little bit mentally, I needed a little extra push, I could think about these little things I'm carrying for them, and maybe give myself an extra little push. And it's like, then I can also show them, hey, I brought this along with me. You guys were with me on the run, that kind of stuff. So I had something my son, I carried this in my wallet for ages. It's a little Pokemon card. What's it called? Loudred. It's Loud R-E-D? Loudred? So, something along those lines. Anyway, yeah. Loud R-E-D. So, I'm assuming my son thinks I'm loud. But, which is funny because he's loud. But, so I carried that with me. I, put it in my running belt and that kind of stuff. But I didn't have anything for my daughter. So, during that, and I realized that after I did the half marathon of the Goofy Challenge that year, I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? What do I do for my daughter? So my wife and I, we did a little bit of wander around through some Disney stores at the time, and we found what's called Pieces of Magic. Now, I don't think Disney sells these anymore. Sometimes you can find them in just randomly stuck in a corner of one of the shops and things like that. But they had a variety of different little things. I don't know, it's probably not going to show up at all on this camera. But they're little coins or squares or things like that. Yeah, it's just not going to focus on it, unfortunately. But they've got little sayings on them like, laugh often, have
Happily Ever After, the little carriage, Believe, things like that with a little Tinkerbell on it, and things like that. Thinking of You, Dream, those kind of stuff. So it's all short little sayings, but I was able to pick out about a half a dozen of them that either reminded me of my son, my daughter, or my wife. And those have come with me and been in my race gear for every single race I've run since. Half, fulls, ultras, everything. They're with me all the time. So, yeah, I'll link to the article on that one, the blog article on that one. A little bit more information, better pictures, that kind of stuff. So anyway, yeah, it was those kind of things. I just wanted to kind of touch base on that kind of packing list, and since people will be starting to look right now and starting to think about that, especially as they maybe get a little bit of downtime just after Christmas, that kind of stuff. So wanted to get this video up and out for all those people. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.